Thank you so much, Bill, for being here today and donating a little bit of your time. Everybody has a little bit of a different story how they made the jump from hobby to career. I was wondering if you could share yours.
Absolutely. Well, I always loved magic, like most people. I was, got a magic set when I was 8, but did it all throughout high school and college, and actually went and thought I was going to go into business of some sort, and got an MBA, but got a real job after graduate school for about 6 months, and then I said, no, this isn't going to work. I missed doing magic, and therefore kind of just one day said, nope, not going to do this anymore, and I'm going to start doing magic full time, and just quit my job, and that was it. And I started knocking on doors after that.
Awesome. So what
Yeah.
happened when you knocked on doors? How long of a start did that take?
It took a while, and what I found was I had sort of was very comfortable in the corporate world, which is where I do all my focus now, and I knocked on doors, and what I found was everybody was sort of like, well, what other corporations have you worked with? Nobody wanted to be the first. And after, a bunch of rejections of companies saying, well, thank you, it sounds interesting, after a few rejections, I started lying and said, oh, I worked for this company and that company and this company, and doors started opening up. And they were like, oh, well, if you worked for them, then it must be good for us. And it started there. So it started slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you start something, it's never quick.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you had to start again, would you do the same thing? Would you lie?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a question about it. That was the only way to get my foot in the door. Now, I had performed a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
had for years and years and years. I mean, I think no matter what, you need the performing experience. And, I was one of those guys that took every opportunity that I could. And then even when I started doing it full time, started doing restaurant magic at a place in New York, and did it anywhere I could, and didn't worry about the money, and just worked as much as I could.
Awesome. Would you recommend, say somebody wanted to get into corporate magic, but all they're getting is like children's birthday parties, stuff like that? Would you recommend still taking those gigs, or would you say don't do them if they're not what you want to do?
Well, you got to eat,
Right.
so you got to take whatever you can. But in the meantime, while you're doing the kid shows, you can start calling on companies, and you can start performing in places where people might see you. For example, restaurants. I mean, I've always thought walk-around magic is great. It's up to the magician to plant the idea into the customer's mind. So, in other words, if you're doing walk-around magic and people see you doing walk-around magic, well, that's the only way they think of you. However, if you're doing walk-around magic and you say, here's a trick I just did at a sales meeting for, IBM or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
It makes people go, oh, he does sales meetings. And
Right.
that's kind of your job, is to, just like anybody, they think of you in the way they see you. It's your job to change that perspective.
Mm-hmm. So what is it like doing magic in a sales meeting? What's that dynamic there?
Well, it can be a few different ways. I mean, I host a lot of meetings where I'm sort of the MC. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they just want me to tie in messages about, they give me themes, whether it be innovation or teamwork or whatever, and I'll tie those into the performances. And I also do a lot of just straight entertainment after dinner.
Okay.
So it can take on all different, and sometimes it's a combination of doing a teaser at the end of a meeting to get them excited about the evening's activity. Sometimes I tie into award banquets.
Mm-hmm.
It changes every day.
Right. You mentioned tying in corporate messages and strategies. What does that look like? Because that's the question I always see people asking about breaking into corporate magic. How do you tie in the message?
Well, it all depends on your style. First of all, you can't change your style, so it's gotta fit you, and you have to be believable. I mean, I think I think it's really important to know your market and what your strengths are. I do only corporate. I don't do anything else. I don't do colleges. I don't do. I probably do 5 private parties a year, if that, and those are usually for the chairmen of different companies.
Right.
But I think you have to focus on one market. I don't do colleges. I don't do cruises. As where there are people who understand that market much better than I do. And so I think you sort of have to be sort of the go-to person in the market that you pick. And I think it's a really important thing to know what group you appeal to. When I walk on stage, the audience goes, "Hey, what's Bob from accounting doing here?" In other words, I look like one of them. I'm in a business. I'm wearing what they're wearing. I look that way. I don't look like a young college kid. I don't look like I know my role, and that's why it works.
Right. And not only performing, you run Magicorp. Magicorp is your company. How did that start? How did you start with Magicorp instead of performing?
Well, what happened was we started a company back after graduate school where I taught CEOs tricks and illusions that they perform, and we got great press. And my first student was Bill Gates.
Oh wow!
And I taught him illusions, and the Wall Street Journal did a whole big story on us, and it just really grew. And what happened was my phone rang off the hook. I couldn't handle everything, and what I found was when I said I wasn't available, the companies didn't go, "Oh well, we'll wait till next year." They said, "Okay, we're going to go out and find somebody." And unlike any other art, when somebody has a bad experience with magic, they're done. They're not doing magic again. Unlike singing, like if they have a flat singer, they go, "Boy, we better get a better singer next year." With magic, they throw us all in the same bunch, and well, if he was bad, then all magicians are bad. So I started losing jobs to companies who would go out and hire really bad magicians, and they'd say, "Okay, well, we're not doing that again." So I started saying, "You know what? I'm not available, but let me get you the right person." And I started booking the people that I was hanging out with, who are great magicians, who are friends, and a lot of them don't like the business end of it. So they said, "You know what? Why don't you just handle all of my bookings?" And that's how the agency grew. Okay. And now we just exclusively represent. We do about 400 corporate events a year, and we exclusively represent a handful of, I think, the best.
Right. And now is Magicorp, is that all corporations, or are there colleges and trade shows?
Nope, all corporations.
All corporations.
That's all we do is corporate. We do a few trade shows, but I've got the people that, who we call for that. I actually don't do it. It's just not my strength. But there are people who are great at it, who we call, but it's all corporate. I don't think I've ever gotten a call for a college. Actually, 1 or 2 colleges. But that's it, and we don't go after that market. We're not interested in it. Same thing with it's cruises. We don't. I've never gotten a call from. There are agencies that specialize in that, and I think that's great.
So the people that you represent that do the colleges and the cruise ships and the trade shows and all that, that's their own, and then Magicorp just handles.
Well, most people that we work with, who we represent, have college agents or cruise agents. We're their corporate agent.
Gotcha.
That's all we do is corporate. And I think that, you have to know what your specialties are or what your strengths are. So, yeah, so everyone some people we represent, we do everything for, theaters and corporate, but a lot of people we do just corporate for. And that's great. I mean, most of the people that we work with have a lot of them do colleges, and they have a college agent, which is fantastic. I don't think you can be everything to everyone. I think the day and age of having one agent is over. I think you have to have people who specialize in different markets. I don't know anything about the TV or movie industry. A lot of the people we work with have TV and movie agents as well.
Right.
So
yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned if you had to start again, you would just knock on a lot more doors. If you were knocking on the doors, what do you do? How do you get the people hooked?
Well, I think the first key, the biggest thing is you gotta start performing. You gotta perform, and people will see you, and even when you're performing, you have to suggest to them that, hey, you should be using me in this situation. If you're in a comedy club, you should say, here's a trick that I did at a recent sales meeting, or I did it on a cruise ship. You have to put the idea in their mind. They're not going to make that leap for you.
Okay, and then say you put that in their mind, they reciprocate the idea a little bit, but it kind of fizzles out. Is there a way that you should get back in touch with them?
Well, I think you should always keep a mail list and keep
Right.
contacts of people who contact you. And yeah, I mean, our mail list is tremendous, and we keep in touch with them, not often, but several times a year with just. As a matter of fact, we did a blast this morning talking about the Korean magician who was at the summit between the North and South Korean leaders. Just to keep in their mind, and out of sight, out of mind. So you got to stay in touch with people. It's a full-time job, marketing. So yeah, I mean, I think that's remember, as the old expression goes, it's show business. There's two words there: show and business. So anyone who just relies on people to come get them is going to be a pretty hungry person.
Right. So it's mainly just about keeping in contact until they finally agree.
Well, the first thing is you got to have a really great show.
Right.
I mean, that's there's an old expression that great advertising will kill a bad product quickly. So if you're great at marketing and you don't have a good show, it doesn't matter. You have to have a great show, and where they want, everyone that we represent, we're just helping out. People love their performances already.
So just have a great show and it'll come.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I can't stress the importance of having a great show. Once you have a great show, people will find you. I have one of the kids that I mentor or work with. He's working this summer at a theme park, and that's exactly what he should be doing. He should be doing. He's doing the same show 3 times a day for 4 months.
Right.
That's how you get good. You do it over and over and over and over.
Is that Ben that's doing that?
Yes,
Okay.
Ben,
Yeah.
exactly.
He's awesome.
So yes, and that's I think it's really I can't the more you get out there and work, the better it is for you. There's no substitute. I mean, anyone will tell you. It's there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Right.
You have 10,000 hours to put in before anything's going to happen. That's what they say in comedy. You've got 10,000 stage hours before anything can happen. I remember seeing Seinfeld for years and years and years before anything ever happened with him. So there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I definitely agree about having a great show, because I see a lot of people like online and in person where they just want to do one trick, they perform one effect, one routine, And instead of performing that routine over and over and over, they just move on to the next thing before getting really good at the first one.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, if you look at all the really good people, their routines don't change that much.
Right.
They do it just over and over and over and over.
Yeah, how long has Matt King been doing his show? And it's amazing.
Mac is great.
Mm-hmm.
He's been at Harris for 19 years, I think. And,
yeah, and has he been the same?
But don't forget,
much?
he did comedy clubs for years before that. So yeah, Mac's been doing it for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm. And his show is one of the best.
Well, one of the reasons, I mean, besides it
yes.
being great magic and being really funny and
Mm-hmm.
and well thought out, is the fact that he's done it so often that he doesn't have to stop to think about what he's doing, and therefore
Right.
he can listen to his audience versus, you know, I see a ton of performers who are so scripted and rote and mechanical that they're not listening to their audience. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't be any good if you're not listening to your audience.
For sure.
And that's what makes Mac or Williamson, or they've done it so many times that they can go off script and come right back, and that's what makes it great.
Mm-hmm. And like one of my favorite magic books talks about that. It's Scripting Magic by Pete. Who is it? That doesn't matter. I'll figure it out later. But Scripting Magic,
Yeah.
It's got so many great interviews with everybody who says you definitely have to script your magic, but you should also really be willing and able to go off script when you need to.
Absolutely. I mean, you should. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You should know exactly, or no. I personally am not a scripted person,
Mm-hmm.
but my my presentation stays the same night after night after night after night.
Right.
So whether it, you know, I never wrote it out, but it is the same.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's scripting enough. It's not.
Yeah.
You know your show.
Oh, I know my show inside out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I've done it so much.
Mm-hmm. And that seems to be the theme. Just do your show and keep doing it.
That is the theme. There is no way around it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't, you know, I see these, you know, magicians who come up with this brilliant idea or a great trick, and yeah, it's a great trick, but that doesn't make a performance.
Right.
You know, that makes a great trick.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an awful lot of guys who, you know, and I think one of the things that's really important is if you look at all the people who are really great and who are really working, they might be doing knuckle-busting card magic
Mm-hmm.
in the back room, but when they're out in front of people, they're doing the invisible. They're commercial. They're
Right.
very, very commercial. And what you want to do is you want to give the audience a great time. This is, I mean, I'm making some generalizations. I mean, you take somebody like Derek Delgadio, who's got an amazing show, and but that's completely different. That's a theatrical event. So you have to know the audience that you're going for.
Right. Like you can throw out generalizations, but there's always exceptions.
There's always exceptions, exactly.
And yeah, you mentioned something about the effect can be amazing, but if the performance is mediocre, then that's still a mediocre performance. Whereas you can have a mediocre effect with an amazing performance, and then that's the amazing performance. That's the one that
You have that right. We used to play a game, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
And this was really fun. I would play it with David Williamson and Matt King and Michael Weber and a bunch of people, where we'd be at an event, and we would try, and if we were all doing close-up shows or stage shows or something, we would pick a trick for the other one to do to close their show with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was purposely a crappy trick. But the whole idea was you then had to sell that trick to make it a closer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you really, you know, that was really fun. That's how you get to, you know, if you give me the 21 card trick where I have to deal out 3 rows and make that my closer, well, I better darn well focus on presentation and make it a miracle somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you know, I couldn't agree more. I mean, yes. So now if you have a great presentation and a great trick, now you're home free.
Mm-hmm. Were there any of
So,
those tricks that like stood out and you remember as being really amazing for what they were?
oh, there were tons of them. I mean, we would really pick the crappiest trick we could think of. I mean, the candle through the arm, or proppy tricks, or just really stuff. And we'd laugh. We'd all laugh about, oh boy, wow, let's see how he finishes his show with a square circle, or the 20th Century Silks, which is actually a good trick. But
Yeah.
the whole idea was, how do you take a crappy trick and give it a great presentation? Because once you can do that, you're home free.
Definitely, presentation is almost.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
not
think of a
even
great
almost.
singer who can take, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and make that into a hit.
Right.
Now you got an entertainer. I mean, and that's what it's to me, what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. So for you, and I'm guessing probably a lot of magicians, the entertainment and the audience is really more important than the effect.
Well, I think it's got to be both.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, everything has got to be strong. I think
Right.
the biggest thing is that there's got to be surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether it be surprise in your performance, whether it be surprise in the trick, whether it be, it's just giving them something unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes a great performance to me.
Mm-hmm. And now,
Sorry?
oh, I was just gonna say, well, this is a question that, kind of going off on a different direction. This is a question
Sure.
that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. My friend gave me the idea, and the question is there something in magic that you believe that you think every other magician would disagree with, or at least a majority of magicians?
That's a really interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, actually, but it's me. You also have to think about what you, and it's not even about the staging. It's about the tricks. It's about light, the way a show should be lit, and that is that I think it should always. I like a room very bright, and everybody's like, no, it's got to be romantic and dark and mysterious, and I find a room that's bright adds to a. I mean, I wrote a book called Leave Your Ego at the Door for Magicians. And it's full of things that I think people don't take into account, that I think are really important, that aren't necessarily, I mean, some are actual magic show related, but some are things like pre-show music. I've go into these these ballrooms all the time, and the hotel is playing this, dreary music that's putting everybody to sleep. Well, that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to get that audience pumped up. So I always come with my own pre-show music that gets everybody tapping their foot. I want energy in the room, personally.
Right.
And there's a million things like that it's the responsibility of the performer to make sure that happens. And those are the things that you really have to take into account, because those are the little things that add to a performance.
Right, just even before the performance starts.
Oh, absolutely. Or ends. Yeah, absolutely. It's you're providing an experience, not just a show.
Right, it starts as soon as they walk in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is that you have to know yourself. I mean, I can't stress that enough. There are certain tricks that work for certain people and just don't work for other people. There are certain tricks. There's one trick I can think of that is just a killer card trick. I've seen people do it and slay audiences, and when I do it, it's like a thud.
Oh.
I just can't sell it for some reason. I don't know why, so I've stopped, And I think it's really, really, really important to listen to your audience. And they're the ones that really tell you, what works and what doesn't work. And it's really important to go out there with an accurate ear, meaning don't listen for what you want to hear. Listen to what they're saying. Listen, Joseph Dunninger, the great mentalist, used to go into, right after a performance, would go quickly run into the men's room or women's room even, and stand up on a toilet seat in a stall just to overhear what people were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really smart. When what they tell you is one thing, what they're saying to one another is a completely different thing.
Right, that's their honest opinion.
That's right, and that's excuse me. That's what you need, is the honest opinion.
Definitely.
That's the most important thing. And there's certain tricks in your shows that you might say, "Wow, I love this trick," but it does nothing for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all had that. We've all had things where we go, "I love this trick," and it falls flat. And then there are other times we go, "Well, I'll throw this in and see if it works." And then all of a sudden, that's the winner, and you're kind of like, "Huh, boy, I misjudged that one." So.
Now, I was talking to you this weekend, and I mentioned that I have something in my act just because I like it, and you had said that was important too. So how do you decide if you think like you like it more than the audience? Where's the perfect line for that, do you think?
Well, I think it depends on how much time it actually takes. If it's a line that you throw in there for yourself, mm-hmm. that's fine. I absolutely have lines that have never gotten a laugh, but I laugh every time I say it. So but you're moving on. If it was a whole mm-hmm. trick that somebody said, I don't like it, and then there was a trick that Doug Henning did years ago, introduced, where he did a spike through a mirror, mm-hmm. and I thought it was a great trick. For some reason, the audience never liked it. And after I did it a few times, I said, well, that's it. I'm taking that out. You have to listen to your audience.
Mm-hmm. That is, yeah.
That's the key to the whole thing. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listening to your audience and watching your audience. And, the other thing is, especially with corporate, where they've been in meetings all day, you have to watch your audience really closely. I mean, I usually do an hour.
Right.
But if I sense that and I tell the people that have put this together, if I sense that audience is starting to get tired, they've come in from, if I'm in the West Coast, and they've come from the East Coast, and it's now 3 hours later for them. They've been in meetings all day. They've had a long dinner. Well, you're not doing anybody a favor by doing an hour. Mm-hmm. I'll say, I'll do 30 minutes and get out of there and get them laughing and get out. Mm-hmm. And, that's watching your audience. You see who's kind of yawning or texting or you sense it, and you've got to but that comes from years of experience of just watching the audience.
Mm-hmm. And I do that when I'm at the restaurant. If they're getting bored, I just say thank you and go to a different table. So
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get other tables where they go, no, don't go anywhere. You just stay here for 3 hours and do stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's great. And that's, you just keep going and, and that all is part of the learning process.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for being here. Before I end this thing, I have read and heard a lot that you guys at Magic Corp, you guys are pranksters and you have some funny stories. Could you share one?
Oh my gosh, we've got tons of them. Yes, we kind of have a rule that whenever somebody does their first show for us, that a practical joke is pulled on them, mm-hmm. just for fun. And some of them have gone a little overboard, but they have become well-known. I would say probably the most well-known one. I mean, we've nailed everybody over the years. But I would say a big show we did where it was a humongous cast of great magicians, from Lance Burton to David Williamson to Matt King to Ed Alonzo to Michael Weber, Chad Long. I mean, it went on and on and on. Bill Malone, etc. What we did is we had a program that everybody received in their sort of welcome packet when they checked in, and everybody thought they were looking at the program for the next night or for the event. but we had word processed everybody's own program, so that when you looked at your bio, it was really mediocre. But then you'd look at everybody else's program. You'd look at everybody else in your program, and it was glowing, just great. So you're kind of going, why did they write that about me? And we had a meeting at 5:00 that night when we all got there, and everybody came down, and everybody was scowling and kind of pissed because they thought, until finally, I think it was Eric Mead leaned over to Bob Kohler and said, "I can't believe what he wrote about me." Kohler said, yours was great. Mine was, and somebody else overheard it and said, Bob Sheets said, "No, mine was the best." And then everybody started putting two and two together that we, we had done it just to them. So it was great. But we've also nailed, all sorts of people. As my wife says, there's an awful lot of people out to get me. But we have fun with it. It's not mean. It's just kind of welcome to the club group.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again.
Lots of fun.
Sorry.
Sorry?
Just thank you so much again for volunteering your time to come on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, that's great. Keep it up and get out there and practice and work. And, I have no doubt that if you, it's all about learning who you are as a performer and just getting out there. And if you look at all the great performers, they all pretty much know who they are. It's not just about the tricks. They can describe their personality, whatever it is.
Right.
But they're always unique to them. They're not trying to copy somebody else.